Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today I'll be reviewing The Invisible Man 2020. What you can't see can hurt you. Written and directed by Leigh Whannell, starring Elisabeth Moss, Oliver Jackson-Cohen, Harriet Dyer, and Aldous Hodge, based on the familiar story of The Invisible Man from H.G. Wells. In this rendition we have Cecilia, whose abusive ex Adrian fakes his own death and uses a suit that he developed to make him appear invisible so he can stalk and terrorize his ex-girlfriend. When the police refuse to believe her story, she decides to take matters into her own hands and fight back. Before we get into this, I do want to give a shout out to the Morphew, a longtime supporter of the channel who recommended this over on Patreon. It's kind of weird doing solo reviews, but I had requested specifically if we can keep things, a little bit more recent. And so he recommended this one, and that's great. I had already seen it, but it was nice revisiting again, confirming what I already thought. One of the coolest aspects of an Invisible Man movie, of course I'm a fan of Hollow Man from back in the day. It's really cool to see how they can use new technology like CG that we have today to make this Invisible Man feel like he's actually part of the environment. And it was extremely well done and almost flawless, to be honest, because it's used in so many different environments and it always looks really cool. One of the standouts is when there's rain. Cecilia is in a parking lot and she's running for her life. She knows that he's after her, and you as the audience member are just waiting for the rain to bend or just kind of hit this person that is a physical being. And so when the rain starts dripping on him or his suit kind of flickers and flashes because it's malfunctioning, it just looks so clean. Not to mention there's a really cool action sequence that involves Elisabeth Moss being thrown over a table, and I watched the behind the scenes of this and it's just so cool the way that it was done, and it's just perfect. I don't know, there's nothing that I can complain about with the suit or how the Invisible Man came off, because I thought it was great. And even just the way the technology is kind of explained, where it's just a bunch of cameras, it's kind of like a honeycomb shape all over the place. It just seems like it's something that could potentially work. Above that, we have great performances from the entire cast, but most specifically, obviously, is Elisabeth Moss, who absolutely crushes it. Because a lot of this movie revolves around her not 100% knowing if she's being paranoid or she's actually being stalked by Adrian, because it does seem a little bit far-fetched, of course, but seeing her have this internal emotional struggle of constantly in fear, looking around, I think it's just really well done. Her performance was believable, emotional, and you actually feel for her because you as an audience are trying to figure out, is this even real? And if it is, how are you possibly going to explain this to somebody that's going to take you serious? Because I know if I were to go to a cop or something right now, they'd be like, you're on drugs, see you later. So I can't imagine being in that position, and that's what makes you emotionally invested in the story. On the flip side, our antagonist is fantastic as well, because he feels like a real monster. He's controlling, he's manipulative, and his character really fits into societal issues that we have when it comes to abusers that we're talking about today, where it's not always physical, but it's the mental game. Abusers keeping you trapped, feeling like you can't get out of something, and he did an excellent job just being this disgusting scumbag.
And if he didn't like what he assumed I was thinking, he would...
What? He would hit you?
Amongst other things.
Like kind of mentioned with the CG, the production value of this whole movie is just phenomenal, and the camera work is masterclass. I know that's high praise, but the way that the camera moves around from scene to scene, it makes the audience tense, because the camera is almost is it just the camera? Or are we actually seeing out of the eyes of the Invisible Man himself? They use the camera in a very voyeuristic way, where there's lots of long shots, or the frame is partially concealed, the camera is hiding in plain sight, ready to kind of move towards Cecilia at any moment. And in that way, you start to relate to Cecilia a little bit more and more. Like I said, you're invested in her, and the camera work really helps you feel on edge. And even just watching it, if you're not even in that mind state, you could just be looking from one corner to the next, and you're maybe you're looking around for where the Invisible Man could be, or did I just see something move over here? like what's gonna happen next. So I truly believe like this is some of the best cinematography I've seen in a very, very long time. It's tricky to come up with dislikes for this movie because I genuinely really loved it. It's one of the best movies I've seen all year, but if I were to nitpick, perhaps it would be some of the side characters that didn't really maybe react the way that you would think that they would react given the situation, especially considering how convincing Elisabeth Moss is. I also think that the ending, I know a lot of people loved it, I think that it was maybe a bit overhyped because I found that it was fairly predictable. You can kind of guess where that's going almost halfway through the movie, so you're just kind of like going through some of the steps. But even with that said, I still really enjoyed the ending, even though I knew it was coming. This movie was far better than I thought it was going to be. I didn't see any reviews or anything like that prior to watching it. This was one of those expensive rentals that went straight to VOD during the quarantine, so I rented this and The Hunt at the same time. And it was a nice refreshing break to see a new movie in this weird time that was actually really quality. The cinematography was fantastic. The production value in general was top notch. I really loved the pacing, even though it is a little bit on the longer side, because you can really relate to Cecilia as a character and you're emotionally invested, you're willing to hang in there and you're excited about every single action that's made. And because there's variance in the type of tension that's built up from scene to scene, there's some action, I truly believe this is one of the best films of 2020. So I'm gonna give this 4.5 condensation handprints out of 5. As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, links are in the description. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything Bloodbath and beyond.